I just kept hearing, Sarah, you aren't who you think you are. And I found myself in my first sacred feminine ceremony.
Wow.
That was drenched in beauty and love and unconditional feeling of holding, because it's the stories, it's the ceremonies, it's understanding the sacred feminine divine principles. It's to like come and just learn how to be love. I re-met or remembered a part of myself that had not been online.
So can you share a little bit about that journey? What was the awakening like? What did it feel like to start to wake up in a life like that?
Yeah, such a beautiful question.
Hi, beloved. Welcome to This Tantric Life. I'm Layla. Today we are going to sit down with Sarah Jenks. She thought she was going to have an in-the-box life as someone who went to a top college, grew up in Boston, was really good at being sweet and cute and popular, got a handsome doctor husband for herself in college, started to have children in her 20s, and then she accidentally, or not accidentally, met a high priestess, Aline Kalila Doughty, who has also been on this podcast, and sat in feminine ceremony, heard a strong voice say, "You're not who you think you are," and was like, "Oh shit, I guess I'm a witch. And I guess I have living magic that I'm here to share with the world." So she changed her entire successful business around and reoriented it towards creating living temple and bringing back this high priestess way of connecting to the divine. Sarah's got a superpower of making this kind of divine connection accessible. She works with doctors and lawyers and moms and advertising executives and accountants, and really helps everybody see how this kind of living magic is accessible. You can work with her by joining the Living Temple, which she co-founded with Kelly Tavares. And today we are going to talk about her journey as a married mom of 3 and how she woke up inside of her own life, and the key to deep female happiness, how we can be magical high priestesses and design our life however we want. It is not true that you have to be single or you have to have children. It's true that you can be happy with children in a marriage. It's true that you can be child-free and be happy. It's true that you can live your life however fuck you want. So this interview is, how do you make this transition? How do you overcome the witch wound, let yourself be seen? We talk a lot about how to build real living temple and the return of temple to the planet, something I am so passionate about. What it means to be a living, breathing high priestess, how you overcome the fear of expressing yourself that way in the world, and especially how she made this transition from I'm just a normal girl in pearls and a polo shirt with a handsome husband to, oh shit, I'm a wild witch, without blowing up her life, which is a really important piece for us to understand, how you can have the life you want and all the living magic that you have inside of you. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi,
Layla. Yay.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
I'm so happy to hang out.
Yes. I've been sharing with you as we've reconnected in the Soho apartment. Yeah. As I got in at 2 a.m. I also I had a whole thing where I was like, my hair's wet. And I was like, what kind of suburban teenage girl programming is this? That your hair can't be wet.
Totally.
It's your own podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your hair could be wet anyways. It's still this social disaster of what if my hair's wet? And I was like, girl, your hair can be wet.
I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's not going to stop spinning. Sun's not going to collapse. All right, we're going to pause for just a moment, and I'm going to invite you to join my email list. You might be like, email, but honestly, email is where I share my deepest teachings, my most personal stories, and my most outrageously good content. It's also where you can stay connected to all of the podcasts that I release and my programs where you can train more deeply with me. So if you want to join, head over to laylamartin.com and sign up with your best email address. So we here, and what I've been saying is, it's been so beautiful. I've known you over the years, for almost 10 years, I think. It might have been the first time we ever encountered each other. Mm-hmm. And I've watched you get so severely witchy.
That's the best way to explain me.
You moved into the forest.
I did.
And started hosting coven circles.
I did.
And it got like witchier and witchier, but then like got even more where you got a church and invited all of the women in for a high priestess service.
Yeah.
Now you're building a temple. So I want to talk about this progression into the depth of your magic.
Great.
But I'd love to start with something that I picked up on that you shared recently that I thought was so touching, which you said, I came from a very traditional life in some ways. You had children earlier than any of us, 3 of them.
Yeah. I had my first baby at 29.
Yeah. And you have a husband who's amazing. And he was a doctor, like a urologist, very normal job. And as we've talked about, and he's talked about publicly, resistant to personal growth for a period of time.
Exactly.
So you were a mother of 3 with a wonderful husband, but not that interested in personal growth.
Yep.
And you started. And I love what you shared, that you said, I didn't have to give that life up. Because I think a lot of us associate getting on that path with eventually having to burn your life down in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people do it.
Yeah. So can you share a little bit about that journey of more sort of standard life? What was the awakening like? What did it feel like to start to wake up in a life like that?
Yeah.
And then what did you do specifically to be able to not only maintain it, but find your joy within it?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful question. So just to go all the way back to the beginning, I grew up in a traditional family outside of Boston, small suburban town, white picket fence, whole thing. Like, had an amazing, like, super loving, grew up going to church. I went to the #1 liberal arts school in the country. I was like normal, like queen normal. And, I was always surrounded by doctors and lawyers and, bankers. And, there was this checklist of success that I never questioned, And so I spent a good chunk of my like early adult life building this perfect life. And it was still pretty early on, and this is around the time that we met, that I realized I could not have a boss. And so I did leave my job in marketing before I had kids, and I started an emotional eating company. And was like early on in the online marketing days, and
great title
killed
too.
it.
Live more,
Great
way less.
Live more, way less.
Yeah.
And before that, I did the breathtaking bride. So I was like helping brides, get ready for their wedding and all the things. And so I was like, great, I have my own company. We moved to San Francisco. We had 2 babies back to back. My husband is in the like a really great residency program and is going to be a surgeon. And I am just like, check, 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 check. But I can't get out of bed in the morning. And I'm absolutely miserable. I have a hard time getting through the day. I was having constant anxiety and overwhelm. And I remember having this moment of like, did I completely fuck this up? But the toothpaste is out of the tube. Here I am. I'm a mother with 2 kids under 2, and I'm married to this man. I want to be married to him forever. So where do I go? What do I do with this deep pain and discomfort and grief and sadness that I was that was just like erupting out of me? But I didn't feel like I was allowed to complain because everything looked so great.
Yeah, and your husband's really handsome.
He's super hot.
Yeah, totally. So it's like you got a hot doctor.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear it.
So I was just like, I just kept saying, well, I hope it goes away.
Yeah.
I just hope it goes away. And I was going to therapy regularly. And one day I walked into my therapist's office and I saw these like chairs that have no legs on the floor. We now know them as back jacks, but I was like, what are these floor chairs? And, I'm in like patent leather pumps and a polo shirt and pearls, like walking into therapy. And I can smell incense in the upholstery, and there's these paintings of these like alive, voluptuous women all around, and there's blue, like sapphire blue velvet everywhere. I'm like, velvet?
I want to go to this therapist.
Color. And I looked at my therapist and I was just like, what happened here? Because my whole body was erupted in goosebumps, and I was starting to cry just from like looking at this scene that she forgot to clean up from the night before.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, well, I will tell you when you're ready. And I was like, no, I am ready now. Whatever this is, I want in. And I found myself in my first sacred feminine ceremony.
Wow.
And it was in this ceremony within minutes of being in this coherent, deeply held container that was drenched in beauty and love and this just like unconditional feeling of holding that I re-met or remembered a part of myself that had not been online in my life because I had spent so long focusing on the external.
Yeah.
So I started working on the internal in my life, and I just kept hearing, Sarah, you aren't who you think you are. And I kept going to ceremony, as much as I could, and I kept it a secret for
Real
years.
Quick, did the therapist like take you into the ceremony right
Yes.
away?
No.
Or they
a month
revealed
later.
what it was and was like, you can come.
I have
and what
a
is
circle,
a sacred
you can
feminine
come.
ceremony?
Yeah, so a sacred feminine ceremony. So my therapist is now my mentor, Elaine Kalila Dowdy.
Oh, it was
And
her.
It was her. I know.
Yes, she's been on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That was such a great interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best. So in her lineage, and my lineage, which is the 13 Moon Mystery School, we're trained to hold ceremony in this. It's really about holding a certain kind of energetic frequency that's based on the sacred feminine archetypes. So it's so different than a workshop where someone is leading you through a series of steps, where in ceremony you're held in an energetic field to be in the alchemy of really what's here for you. So it was a lot for me of sitting with my wounds and sitting with the things that felt hard and just bringing love to them. And we use it's really the physics, like physics of color, physics of symbol, physics of smell, physics of sound to create this coherent vibration. And this vibration attunes our body, attunes our cells to see what we can't normally see in ourselves and also in our lives. And I just started to wake up, but I was very separate. It was like there was like ceremony Sarah, and I had my ceremony friends, and then I had real life Sarah, who was a wife and a mother and a friend and a business owner. And I was very separate. And I got to the point where my real life started falling apart. I was fighting all the time with my husband. My business stopped working. I was miserable in motherhood. And I just kept hearing in ceremony, you have to be you everywhere. And so I started to bring my sacred self to my children and to my marriage. And it really came down to speaking my truth and seeing where I had internalized patriarchy in myself and where I wasn't leaning into the tenets of the sacred feminine, which we can get into, right inside of my marriage, right in my house. And very slowly over time, it was like I merged my life and who I actually am.
And do you remember a moment in those early ceremonies where you were like, holy shit, this is real? Like, what made you be like, the polo shirt and pearls is not the ultimate reality?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it was every time it's more like having the feeling in your body of it being real.
Yes.
Because what I felt was this deep grounding and feeling of knowing in myself.
Yeah.
Where I was always trying to know who I was through the lens of other people.
Yes.
Am I seen as a good daughter? Am I seen as a good wife? Am I seen as a good business owner? And I finally was able to see and be in relationship with myself and know me beyond my roles, beyond what I was doing, beyond success, beyond what anybody else was perceiving of me.
I want to take a moment to pause this episode and share one of my favorite stories of transformation from the VITA coaching certification.
We're in our $4 million year. My name is Dr. Kimberly Rose Pendleton, and I am an intimacy coach. It wasn't until I enrolled in VITA that I felt like I could own the title of being an intimacy coach that same year. I mean, my business really blew up. I know it's not an accident. Felt like I stepped into that container and I was like, am I a coach? Over into like, I can claim this. I'm the last person you ever would have thought would be like making millions of dollars. Because if even I can like thrive in this, you know, there really is room for everybody.
If you feel called to upgrade your life and career with the most profound personal transformation tools and business training, learn more about VITA coaching at laylamartin.com/VITA coaching. It's VITA coaching. And then I don't know the specifics of your journey with Jonathan, your husband, but I know that there was a period of time, which I think is many women's deep fear about doing this work.
Yeah.
Where they like skyrocket ahead of their partner.
Yeah.
And their partner's like, not that interested.
Totally.
And you're like, oh no.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
It was super hard.
Yeah.
You know, it was super hard. When I had kids and became a mother, I unconsciously took on the role of being the primary parent and unconsciously took on the role of keeping the house really peaceful and calm just to prevent Jonathan from having an explosion. And so I was just always like doing this and keeping the kids quiet and making sure dinner was cooked. And also, this is not who I was before I had kids. It was like the brainwashing switch flipped on as soon as I had babies. And so a lot of it was coming to terms with, oh, actually, babe, we're not in equality in the ways that we're running our lives. And I feel like I'm walking around on eggshells. And I'm like really overdoing it here. And so a big part of it was life was going to get harder for him because he was going to have to regulate his own emotions and do more at home. And and he had a really big job. He was working 90 hours a week in residency, and he saw a lot of his co-residents who were unconditionally supported by their partners. And, there's this whole archetype of being a doctor's wife where a lot of their existence is like there's this assumption that doctors just need like a full-time support system. And I was not available for that. So we went to therapy, and our therapist was so amazing. And the thing that he really
Your therapist
had us,
became my therapist
yes,
eventually.
Thank you for that.
David,
Yeah. And what he really said was, Jonathan, if you wanted a wife who was just there to support you, you married the wrong person. It's like really clear to me that that's not like who Sarah is. Like she's got a lot going on, and there's so many benefits to being in a relationship with someone like that. And something just flipped. And there was this shift, and I started to feel seen for all the parts of me that were maybe not traditional or what a good wife should be, but just being in the magic of creating a very unique and out-of-the-box sacred union that we weren't seeing a lot of people like in our lives and at the hospital and, doing.
Yeah. And he eventually did shift and became a teacher in his own right and really stepped into this.
Yeah, he had a really beautiful men's coaching program for many, many years, and he does one-on-one work with people now, and he is very integrated in this work. So it's a really great reminder that it can feel hard to stick our neck out and to take a risk to disrupt something that maybe seems like it's working on the outside, but on the inside, if you have to continually pretend to be someone you're not, if you're walking on eggshells, if you can't be yourself at home, if you feel like you have to hide parts of yourself from your partner, it's just not worth it. But when you reveal who you are, I think there's almost always this domino effect of then your partner gets to really understand who they are, because it wasn't just about Jonathan like changing himself to meet me. He had to meet himself and be like, oh, what's real in here? What are my wounds? And what's my wiring and my patterning? And I had to call him into doing the inner work in order for it to work.
Yes. All right, so let's do
Oh my God,
sex
look
magic.
at this. This is so beautiful.
You're sharing this beautiful story, and I can feel Jameson like standing there being
my
like,
God.
must give them drinks.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh.
Thank you.
I love the mint. I was telling Jameson I don't like mint, and this is an extraordinarily large mint.
It's so great. It's like
and it's really pretty.
drinking
it's
into
a tree
a
mint.
forest. It really tastes so good. You did such a good job with this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was really appreciating that the other day, 'cause I drank some of the other potions that are out there on the market, and I was like, these are categorically bad.
Yeah.
They taste bad. You
Yeah.
have to endure it in order to enjoy it.
No, but
and
this is like very
packed
pleasurable.
full of herbs, and it's
Yeah.
actually good.
Yeah. Amazing.
This is sex magic, and it's designed to basically make your body feel more glittery, more turned on. It's got all kinds of amazing herbs in it. It's sweetened with monk fruit. It's colored with beetroot. It's got this beautiful combination of saffron in it and shilajit and all kinds of activating things, dopaminergics that make your body feel more pleasure. It's really powerful. Oh, and Hooperzine A, which is a nootropic moss. That was like the thing we were the most proud of. We were like, we put so many herbs in it and it actually tastes good. Feel deeper arousal and heightened sensitivity in as little as 30 minutes. Try it now at shopmood.com. So one of the things that I love that your story and your sharing gets to the heart of it is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is female happiness and how much the messaging, even recently, right? It used to be like, get a husband who's not violent, not an alcoholic, and not lazy.
Yeah.
And have some children.
Yep.
And take really good care of your house and you'll be happy, right?
Totally. Yep.
And then some subset of women were like, I call bullshit on that is the source of my happiness.
Right.
And then it was like, okay, well, be free, be a girl boss, be a slut, wear whatever you want, have the time of your life, and then you'll be happy. And then it was like, no, actually, you'll make a bunch of money, you'll feel empty and hollow, and you won't get a provider man, or maybe you'll miss out on having children, you won't be happy. And just all of this externalized messaging that was sort of like a societal flip of like, this is the answer to women's happiness, never mind.
Right.
This is the answer to women's happiness, never mind. And like a public like tearing down of, women who acquired a certain power, tearing down of women who are homemakers and raise their children.
Totally.
It's like, no matter what you do, there's kind of this hidden societal thing of like,
absolutely,
you'll end up hating it, Yeah. And I really thought about that. And I was like, I think that is because women's happiness lies in the one place they don't want you to look, which is in that connection to self.
To self.
And I have a hard time imagining any woman who is truly happy who doesn't know herself. And that usually has a spiritual component to it. It usually has whatever flavor of spirituality. I know myself on a spiritual level, and I have met my own soul, and I have met my own shadows.
Yeah.
Happiness only comes from that. And everything else is an accoutrement. And it sounds so obvious, but it's not what we understand in the cultural narrative, because you can be so happy as a mother. And in fact, the only truly happy mothers that I know, that I don't know all of them, are ones who do have their own practices. Yeah. They cultivate their own magic. They have their own relationship to nature, whatever that kind of piece of aliveness is. Yeah. Because everybody knows that your children can bring happiness, but your children cannot make you happy.
Totally.
And a husband or a partner can bring you happiness, but they cannot make you happy.
Correct.
And there is no real cultural understanding of what process a woman has to undergo to find her own happiness, to cultivate her own happiness. Because then you can be happy in business.
It was deliberately taken from us.
Exactly.
And this is one of the reasons, when I got into ceremony, I was like, why is this the first time that I am meeting myself? Yeah. Why isn't everybody doing this? Where are the ceremonies? Like, what happened? And that's when I started really going into it. I'm like, and how did I become this woman who was just like in service to my husband and my kids? You know, it wasn't like, that wasn't how I was raised. I was raised to be a feminist. I was raised to be a leader. Like, what happened in me? And so I started studying patriarchy and the impacts on our psychology and what we do to ourselves. And in my research, what I saw was, you know, the rise of patriarchy completely correlated with the destruction of the sacred feminine, of the temples, of the practices, of the erasure of the mythology. And that creates a system where we are hidden from ourselves because it's the stories, it's the ceremonies, it's understanding the sacred feminine divine principles that are like big signs to who we are and what we care about. And so it's because when we actually go in to ourselves, it's like we unlock this incredible, infinite source of energy and confidence and power and sovereignty and self-responsibility. And it's not good for the patriarchy. And also we get really angry and we get activated into understanding our responsibility to the collective and really being in care of the people that the patriarchy wants us to ignore. And so it's just so, because I think in the beginning of my journey, I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? You know, and I was so mad at myself. But then I realized that it's brainwashing. And once we know, it's our responsibility to unbrainwash ourselves, but then to start to do our work to create a culture so that it doesn't continue to keep happening for people.
Yeah, I think we use patriarchy, which feels so external, and it is a system of power and repression and trauma.
Yeah.
And the internal legacy is still not as recognized. Like we reference it, but it really does feel like an actual erasure of self.
Yeah.
Like you just actually don't feel
Yeah.
like there's something in there.
In there.
So it all becomes external. Like I need someone to love me.
Yep.
Because I don't know what self-love is.
Right.
I need someone to find me attractive because I definitely don't find myself attractive.
Yep.
I need somebody to tell me that I have value because I don't feel inherently valuable. And while it sounds so obvious, doing something like temple practices or being a high priestess, whatever that means to you, you realize like from the inside out how infinitely lovable you are and how infinitely lovable everybody is.
Yep.
How spiritually worthy you are, how no one can ever take that away from you.
Exactly.
And so there's not such a like, feed me, feed me, feed me, I'm starving.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm actually full.
Right.
And it is true that those are not the women they wanted running around society. And so I'm just watching right now out in the world, it feels like a next level of brainwashing, which was like, it used to be like, oh, patriarchy's over, so you get to be sexually free and make money. But now you're still not going to be happy. Like there's now actually go back and be a trad wife, or actually like there's all this like cycling.
The pendulum swinging is wild to witness in our culture. And you're totally right. We have to come to the sacred third, which is just like connecting with our sacred selves. And then when we do that, it's like, you know, society is always telling us like, well, there's like this path or this path or this path. But actually when we come in, when we close our eyes, when we stop looking outside of ourselves for the way, we can then tune into what is my unique expression of myself in my life. You know, and I have a very out of the box psyche in a very like in the box family situation. You know, it's like I'm raising my kids in a very traditional suburb outside of Boston, like you know, I'm like 5 minutes from where I grew up. You know, they go to public school. We're like hanging out with all the like regular people in our town, you know, but I'm super different. And it's like, I love it. It works for us. You know what I mean? And then everyone just gets to do it however they want.
Everyone gets to do it however they want.
Yeah.
And that piece of women knowing that in themselves is the key.
Right.
Like that go home first. And it doesn't mean that the other things don't bring you joy or activate happiness. It's just that I don't think you can be truly joyful and happy if you haven't done that journey home into yourself.
Absolutely.
Not a true lasting happiness that's there with you, because life comes and goes and we all know it.
Yeah.
And like that thing is still very, very surprisingly few women have done that depth of journey. And actually people of any gender, that's really missing for men as well. These initiatory ceremonies where they feel true joy and happiness and know their own magic because of the work that they've done.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. So you then got land, became a steward of land.
I did.
Tell us about some of the wild things that you did on the land.
Yeah. So basically what happened was I was leading my emotional eating practice, and I was going to ceremony in secret, and I kept getting this hit that I was supposed to lead ceremony, which was never the plan.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to be a life coach. I'll maybe weave some of these practices into what I do, but no one's going to notice. It's just for me.
Yeah.
Because again, I thought it was super weird. I didn't know what people were going to think of me. It felt too risky because my business was doing so well. But again, I wasn't like, I wasn't happy in my life. So I had this one moment where I wrote out a 3-year vision, and I was like, okay, in 3 years, later in the future, I would love to own a retreat center and have women come to the land and lead ceremony and, do all these like amazing, sacred, witchy things. But I was like, there's no way I could do that right now. I'm going to go be a stay-at-home mom for a couple of years. This was my plan. And 2 weeks after I wrote that, Jonathan and I were on Zillow looking for small houses to buy in neighborhoods to raise our 2 kids and have a 3rd baby. And we saw this one house, and it was like these wide open fields and a long driveway and a lake. And then there was a temple. And something that I put in my vision was that I wanted to build a yurt. And it's this like beautiful octagonal 4-season building, like way better than I could have ever dreamed. And I just realized like, this is literally what I wrote down. It's right here. And I was freaking out about it because it meant that I was going to have to put my insides on the outside.
Yeah.
I was totally freaking out. And I was sitting in my sacred start in the morning, which is what I call my morning ritual. And I asked the goddess, what should I do? And she said, Google it. So there's like something on Zillow about Harmony Farm. So I Googled Harmony Farm, and there's this blog, and I'm reading the blog, and it's about like calling in the next owner of this land and all the things that they've done there, yoga and song circles. And I get to the bottom, and it's my high school therapist. And I realized that I went to therapy at this house for 2 years when I was in high school. And she was the first person to help me with my emotional eating.
Wow.
And get this, she wrote a book on the sacred feminine.
Wow.
And sacred feminine archetypes in psychology. Her name is Dr. Leslie Shore. She's incredible. And I just knew. So I got on an airplane. We went to see the house. This is like a longer story. We ended up buying it. And all of a sudden, I own a retreat center, and I haven't even, come out as a sacred woman yet. And I was like, okay, well, I guess this is the moment to do that. And so I ended up hosting my first retreat. It was the most amazing weekend of my life. And I started to fully commit myself to stepping onto the priestess path. So I told Elaine Kalila, who was my therapist and then my mentor, who I'd been sitting in ceremony with for, God, however long it was at that point, 3 to 4 years. And I said, I'm ready. And that it still took me a long time, to fully commit. But I was ordained in my lineage about 3 years ago now. So the work has taken on different forms based off of, where I've been in my training. But, now for the past couple years, we have been live streaming these incredible ceremonies from our temple, where we have this amazing video crew that comes, and we're doing deep archetypal work, and women come and we fill the temple, and women are meeting all over the world and tuning in to have this collective web. We do these incredible retreats where we really get to come and feel what it's like to live on sacred land and to be in ceremony together and to share meals together and dance and to just like really have this unraveling and get in touch with our aliveness. And I really wanted to, when I was in ceremony with Kalila, especially in the early days, I would see these temples, when I would close my eyes when we'd be in vision space. And then I started studying them, and I realized that there were sacred feminine temples all over the world. I know you have visited many of them. And I was like, I really want that to be real. I really want that to be a thing. Like, I want to go, and I don't want to just go and have it be like the ruins of it. I want to create it. And so over the past year, my business partner and I have been creating a temple. And it has been the most incredible process to think about what's the structure of a temple, what are the tenets of a temple, what's the responsibility of a temple, and to understand also how does it work in 2025 with the internet and our natural global connection without really abandoning local community at the same time. So it's been such a fun and slightly overwhelming process, to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I'm so passionate about this. We've been cultivating temple in Austin and building one, and it feels like part of the pulsation of the zeitgeist is bring back the temples.
Bring back the temples.
They got destroyed, and it's time to rebuild them.
Yep.
And not, go see them as ruins or ancient artifacts, but as living cultural institutions that we need.
Yeah.
Like really need.
We really need it.
So you referenced the priestess path.
Yeah.
Could you break down what that is for you? Like, what does it actually look like? What are the practices, the principles of being a high priestess?
Yeah. So in my lineage, which is the 13 Moon Mystery School, there's many different, just like there's many different ways, paths of religion or paths of spirituality. I can just speak to, the lineage that I am a part of. So the way we see the work of the priestess is a person who stands between the veils, who is firmly planted in this world and also firmly planted in the world of the unseen, and can navigate the weave back and forth and understand how do we bring the, energy and frequency and divine principles in our knowing into what's happening right here, and be an empty vessel for the divine to, speak through us, to move our feet, to really have our hands bring healing and care and action into the world. And being a priestess can take many different forms. Like the form that I've chosen is to lead ceremony and hold a temple. But, there are priestesses that Kalila trains who are physicians and teachers and, and work in corporate, because it's really about the practice of holding the energy of the room. And so my training has been a ceremonial training on how do I hold a coherent field with a group of people, and how do I hold a certain vibration in my body, in the room, using color, using tools, using sound, using smell, also tracking all the energy that comes into the room and all the women, like really using feeling navigation to feel where there's like a kink in a hose. Because when we come into ceremony together, it's not about me. it's about the field and the field that we're all creating together. So it's my job as a priestess to feel where the kinks are, where the wobble is, and just have them sit in it a little bit more deeply, to sometimes reveal something, to like let the pressure out a little bit. And then what happens is that little relief of pressure, maybe in one person, sends a ripple through the whole field. And all of a sudden you feel this like, whew. And then the divine can just like work through everybody. And we end up having this process that brings us to more clarity, more capacity, and more self-responsibility. So we can really take what we are uncovering in ceremony and walk it out into the world, into our families, into our communities, into the service work that we do, into the collective action work that we do. But it's like the place that we come back to center. Yeah.
And what was the hardest thing for you about learning how to do that?
Oh, God. Well, there's a few things. The first gateway for me was like up against this wound of thinking that it was just like super weird, because I always wanted to be liked and I wanted to be seen as normal. And it was like the witch wound was so intense in me. And I would often have this split of like, wow, this feels like the most normal thing in the world. And then I'd have part of my mind say like, this is so weird. And so that was one of the hardest things for me. And I'm such a mind person. I'm super academic. I love like figuring things out. I'm super strategic. But the whole point of being a priestess is to drop out of the mind and to not know. And it's so hard to do. It takes so much practice, and you have to just trust that, like, you can't prepare really for a ceremony. Like, I've studied for over 12 years. I've practiced in ceremony. I know the tools and the flow and the intention, but you can't plan it like a workshop with PowerPoint slides. So you just like every single time I'm just like, well, I hope it comes through.
Yeah.
Because it's all about who's there and what's happening in the moment, and like tuning to the field. And, it can be like always, the few hours or few days before I lead a ceremony, it's like really intense,
It's trusting the emergent wisdom of life over your own mind.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, totally.
Which is such a deep surrender.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so interesting. You can always track that one of the tools of human repression is to train people to think that things are weird or less than
Totally.
or scary,
Yep.
but kind of more weird and laughable. Like it's kind of like a joke.
Totally.
Because that's the thing that nobody wants to do. Scary, you're a little like, ooh, like let me go try it. But if something's like a joke. Yeah.
Yeah, or seen as less than or not important.
Yeah.
And that's like really something that I care so much about, because sacred work and the sacred feminine used to be so normal.
Yeah.
It used to be everywhere. It used to just be like being an architect or being a physician or being a priest or a minister or a rabbi. It was just, completely normal.
Yeah.
And I really want that to be true again.
Yes. And this othering, this weirding, this all of that, it was part of how they erased our ability to remember.
Exactly.
Because we get born every generation.
Yeah.
And it actually is, to some capacity in every single woman, this ability. Some of us are called to do it for our careers, for our lives, but everybody has the ability.
Everyone.
To steward the divine or to hold magic in a space. And this, it's weird, it's less than, it's crazy. It literally keeps us in this hypnosis from looking directly at our power. And it's easy to say it, but what was lost in that is so sad.
Yeah.
The feminine ability to be truly happy, to steward life from divine wisdom, to be in ceremony and nature together.
Yeah.
It's so extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's simple, but it's the key to so much joy. And it got devastated.
Totally.
And as we remember, in some ways, we were the first generation that got to remember as deeply as we did, not just spirituality, right? Like the West had a whole spiritual awakening in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but like to truly, truly have it start to become normalized.
Absolutely.
And that is an incredible gift. And we're just getting started where that is an option now for anybody.
I know. It's so great.
Yes.
And that's really the reason why Kelly and I wanted to create this temple, is because we want it to be easy for people to come into ceremony.
Yeah.
You know, to not have to always go on a retreat or always join a program, but to be able to join a temple like you would join a church or join a synagogue. And because we really believe that this is like the core of what people need in order to like do the incredible work that they're doing in the world. It's like coming to the well, you know, coming back into themselves, remembering who they are so that they can fill themselves up, expand their capacity to like continue to do the important work that they're out there doing in the world. It's not just to come and learn how to be a priestess. It's to like come and just learn how to be love.
Yes.
And then walk it out there.
Yes. And what do you think are the important functions of a temple in a community?
So the foundation of our temple, which is called the Living Temple, is centered around ceremony, community, and collective care. And so ceremony being the place that we come in and we come back into center. We because we're always in remembering and forgetting. We remember who we are. We come back to these concepts. We connect with the earth. We can listen to our soul. And then we believe in being in community. And community is often different than friendship. You know, it's about how can we be with the people close to us. So a big part of our temple is connecting people who are local and sitting in circle together and doing the ceremonies together and being in some difference, you know, and learning how to like share a meal and learn from each other and, you know, witness each other and hopefully like do some service work together to we have the most amazing people in our community that are doing the most world-changing, incredible things, getting them together to help and support each other instead of just, you know, working in isolation. And then a big part of it is collective care because temples were always attuned to the well-being of the community.
Yes.
You know, the foundation of the sacred feminine is about non-hierarchy and equality and tending to the whole instead of just tending to the individual.
And I'm sure some people listening will be like, isn't that how you become a cult? So how do you keep yourself from being the bad kind of cult?
Yeah, well, you know, a cult is something people can't leave.
Yeah.
Or a cult is something that is really tells you what to believe.
Yeah.
So the Living Temple is a practice-based community. So we don't have a specific dogma of how we think people should practice or even see the divine. You know, people come in from all different religions, all different points of view. Like even my business partner, Kelly, and I, like we see the divine differently. There's no one way, but we're here to create the structure and the system and the field for people to sit in, to have their own relationship with the divine, their own relationship with their life. And no one has to stay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of, you know, architecting spaces that facilitate communion with the divine.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about the elements of sound and smell and space and all of that.
Yeah.
What are some of the elements that you find really support that connection?
Yeah. So for me, I don't know if this is because I'm a Libra or my human design, but there's something about beauty and sacred beauty that has the most profound impact on me. And I find on a lot of the people who come into ceremony, because often you walk into our temple and it's just this feeling held by the space, feeling held by the colors, the textures, the flowers. And then another part of it is unconditional love. You know, we have a practice in 13 Moon where the priestess and the apprentices stand as gates at the doorway of the temple. And before you come into ceremony, you have to meet the gate and be in an open eye gaze like we are right now. And the priestess asks a question and they have to leave something at the gate. But the most important thing is the gate is holding unconditional love and full presence. And for a lot of people, it's the first time they have ever felt seen or met, you know, and like someone is looking deeper into them as opposed to just seeing their facade or who they are or who their role or the disguise that they wear. And I'd say those two things for me are the most profoundly transformational elements of ceremony.
And people are so hungry for that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't resonate with traditional religion right now,
Yes.
a human need.
It's a human need. And, you know,
connect
I'm
to the
so
divine.
grateful for the work of Dr. Lisa Miller because she's done all of these like neuroscience studies about, we have this whole brain center that only lights up in spiritual practice. So humans are literally wired to need spirituality. And so we have to find it. We have to find the way that works for us. And I loved going to church growing up, like loved it. But definitely it had an impact on me that the women were never mentioned.
Yeah.
And when I became an adult, I really tried to find a church, you know, when I had little kids and I was like, this is before I was just going to ceremony silently and not going to tell anybody. It didn't resonate with me anymore. Yeah. And so I wanted to create something that is going to resonate for some people who are like hungry for it or curious about it.
Yeah, because there's a real spiritual pain body on our planet of that connection to God being so sacred and having it be misused as a power play by church, by religion, which is that natural connection that you have to the divine.
Yep.
I control it and tell you how you get to access it, and you have to do what I say. And so we're traumatized from that, understandably. It's fucked up that we ever got treated that way. And so part of this path home in creating this as well is making it really safe for people to reconnect to the divine, to have a deep spiritual practice, to be in communion with nature. It's so important.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about Remember, which was the ceremony I held in a church earlier this year. And the thing that was most profound for people was coming face to face with their own wounding from growing up in traditional religion in their lives and just being in a church that fully welcomed us and fully welcomed our sacred feminine community and practice. And it's like that weave, that repair was just enough for people to just be like, wow, me, and all of the curiosities that I have and the path that I've been on, I'm welcome here in this church. And it was just so beautiful, you know? So if we look for it, there's so much healing and mending everywhere. Yeah.
So what would be a few practices or approaches that helped you be this kind of woman in your marriage? You talked a little bit about what was holding you back and then speaking truth.
Yep.
But to the place where you got to now, what really supported you in that?
That's a great question. Well, I think I had to really look at what were all the unconscious rules that I was playing by. You know, what kind of mom do I think I should be? What kind of wife do I think I should be? And I had to spend a lot of time, again, going inside because there was no model for me. I don't think there's any model really for any of us about how we are meant to do relationships. So I had to spend a lot of time closing my eyes, going in, emptying out, bringing these questions into ceremony. and realizing that the way I'm going to do things is as unique as my fingerprint. And then I just had to be brave to speak my truth about it and also take more self-responsibility for what I wanted to create in my life. Because often this is totally a trap that I fell into, and I think something a lot of people do, is we're like, well, this is what I want, so I need you to do it for me. I need you to change so that I feel more comfortable being myself. But often we have to change ourselves. And yeah, that might create some dissonance, but it's not someone else's job to go first to make us feel less uncomfortable about becoming who we are. We have to take self-responsibility for that.
Yeah, like the world is not going to roll out the red carpet for you to emerge in your truth. You got to like roll that carpet for yourself.
You have to like fully emerge as who you are, because it is easier to shift a vibration than it is to shift the material world. That's just physics. But when we shift our vibration, we activate parts of ourselves that have a deeper knowing, that can see things differently, that can come at something with love. And that's how we then become creators of our life, how we can sit in uncomfortable conversations centered in our heart and be like, let's figure this out together. You know, and a big tenet of the sacred feminine is also being a part of a system. You know, I definitely had many years where I was like, well, it's my way or the highway, or like, you better get on the train or get off. You know what I mean? But I had to learn to be like, okay, I'm actually in a family system. I can't do exactly what I want whenever I want to. I'm responsible for these children, for my partner. Like, we are a family. You know, before it was flipped the other way, where like I was always in service. So oftentimes we want to flip the pendulum, but that's not actually the way. We don't go from like one hierarchy to another hierarchy. We go from hierarchy to non-hierarchy and being in the system. And I think that mindset has been really helpful for me.
And what is your favorite object on your altar?
Oh, that's such a great question. I have this like deep mauve rose quartz ball not a cylinder, sphere. I'm like, what is the shape? And I bought it hours after I was ordained in Avalon in Glastonbury, England. And it was just one of the most magical days of my whole life. And it holds that energy for me. Yeah. What about you?
My favorite object on my temple, it is Ganesh holds this beautiful, it's like an emerald crystal. It's a small one, but it has those beautiful crystal peaks, and it's the relationship to puja and worship, that crystal has anchored a lot of the energy and focus.
Beautiful. I love that.
And what would you say to anyone who is inspired? They're like, wow, I want to make a local temple community. It's around, it's in the air.
Yeah. I guess what I would say is coming to ceremony is completely normal.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, it's not for, oh, women like that, or women who are like this, or I have to like learn a bunch of stuff before I come in, or like, I don't know about that, or like seems super strange. If there's something in you that's like, maybe that would be good for me. Or like, I ache for something like that, you know, to sit hip to hip with people, to get like down into what really matters, you know, to let it all unravel and fall apart. If you want that depth, if you want that sense of unconditional love, it is not weird. Yeah. It is like literally what we require, what used to be so normal. And there's just like a bunch of us that are doing it. And like, we just want you to come be with us.
And you can start with small gatherings. Like we, you know, way back in the day, the early iterations of this were doing breathwork circles in my yard.
Yeah.
Doing sort of pagan either full moon celebrations or in bulk, or just like getting together and sharing our intentions, our desires, putting on a playlist for 30 minutes, breathing, all of that. This can be a small start to building community that usually is about some sort of practice.
Yeah.
Usually is around like practicing on the new or full moons. It usually is something simple. And then I think there's this giant leap, what I'm really feeling, which is like bring back the full temple.
Yeah.
Like really steward true temple.
Yeah.
And what that is and what that means for the community. And for those of you listening who are like, I want that, you know, I think it starts like the smallest iteration of temple. The most basic step is find people who want to do a practice with you.
Totally.
Even if it's just once a month.
Totally. Yeah. And this is why we built the Living Temple this way. So we have over 50 local communities all over the country already. You know, women who are gathering and being in ceremony with us in their home temple spaces.
Wow.
So it's like it's there. Like it's already happening, you know, inside of our community. And it's a great way to like have a ceremonial structure so no one has to lead anything. But it's like they're sharing meals beforehand and, you know, integrating together afterwards. And it's amazing. And we have this global connection, so it's so fun.
And what was the granular way in which you overcame your witch wound? Because you're sitting here in a cheetah vest. You've got like an iridescent
I got my
pendant thing.
Yeah, my Isis wings. Yeah. You know, here's the thing. It was two things. It was slowly over time.
Yeah.
You know, it was practice. You know, because the question that people ask all the time is, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I always used to say like, oh, I'm a coach or I work in women's empowerment. And, you know, once I was ordained, I had to say, I am a priestess. And to practice saying that out loud without flinching or like going on and on about it, you know what I mean? And the other part has been, you know, understanding that so much of women's oppression has been about not being sacred. And so to me, it's one of my collective action tools is to say, you know what, the sacred feminine matters. It is not weird to be a witch. It is so super important. And the erasure of the sacred feminine was one of the primary tools of oppression. And I'm not going to play into that shit, you know? So it helps to get fired up about it for me a little bit. And then, you know, it's also in how I dress. You know, I meet all of my friends because of my rings.
Yes.
They're like, oh my God, what do you wear? Like I met someone at the bar last night. She was like, tell me about your rings. And we had so much in common. We had the best conversation. I met this other man on the subway yesterday. Tell me about your rings. So it's all about showing your insides on the outside in some way, in whatever way that's unique to you.
And I think an important piece too, and we make some Instagram posts about this, is to not misuse these words because that was maybe the weirdest sound I've ever
I love it.
spontaneously made on a podcast. Not to misuse these words, which people right now are like, I think of a priestess as a sex worker.
Oh God.
And there's nothing wrong with being a sex worker.
Totally.
But do not call yourself a priestess as a euphemism for being a sex worker. You can call yourself, I'm a sacred sex worker, or I'm someone who does sexual practice. I do erotic practices in a sacred way. But come up with a different word because there's ways in which our culture's discomfort with sex means that people are using sacred words to hide sex. The same thing with a temple night, right? Wow. Calling a sex party a temple night. And people get very confused now when I say we have a temple and they're like, oh, like a sex party place? And you're like, no. I believe that came from ISTA, which was founded by someone who had horrible sexual boundaries. I personally experienced it and felt they had a right to sleep with all of their students and wanted to create cultural sex parties, which I think it's fine. I think the world should have more sex parties, but don't call it a temple night because a temple is so much bigger than that. And a priestess can be erotically empowered and a temple can have sexual practices. In fact, the word orgia comes from the Greek of rites for the goddess. So
beautiful.
To me, erotic safety and expression belongs in a temple. Erotic safety and expression is part of a priestess's journey, but let's not confuse those words so that people know what a priestess is.
Right. It's just one thread.
Yes.
You know, it's one thread. And, you know, for me, this is like my own opinion, but a conversation I find myself also having a lot is I think it's really important for priestesses to be trained.
Yes.
Like formally trained. Because like no one's walking around saying like, well, I'm an architect without going to architecture school. Just like liking houses doesn't make you an architect. Just like liking spirituality doesn't make you a priestess. Because it's a big role. It's a big job, as you know, as someone who is highly trained. It is so, and who trains people, you know, it's so important. And it's important for the integrity of the role. And we can use it archetypally. You know, priestess is also an archetype, but I think we all need to be really clear when we're using it that way, as opposed to our profession.
Yes, like a priest and a rabbi and a Brahmin, you know, like you are ordained into that. You are trained into that. You come from a lineage of practice, which is very, very, very important to restore an understanding of what that expression and experience is.
And it holds you in integrity.
Yes. Thank you so much for this beautiful
conversation.
For having me. Yes, it's been so lovely to connect with you. And I'm really just inspired for this to let us know as women that we can be witches and we can be high priestesses and we can have wild, wondrous, divine ceremonies and have life look however we want.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it is.
So it is. Thank you.
Thanks, Layla.
Thank you for listening to this Tantric Life. I am Layla Martin. This is the home for the realest conversations about sex, spirituality, polarity, conscious relationships, and all kinds of topics that help us live the absolute most incredible lives. Please check out the next episode. Please go ahead and leave your rating and review on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. It's so, so, so helpful when you do that. If you want to stay connected to me, the most helpful supportive thing you can do is to head over to laylamartin.com, sign up with your email address. That connects you to me if you want to study deeper with me, if you want to receive my deeper teachings. I do it predominantly via email. Finally, you can check me out on Instagram at @the Layla Martin. And thank you so, so, so much for being here.